The bird species of note for many of our visitors at Montezuma Audubon Center and across the Montezuma Wetlands Complex is the sandhill crane. Now, sandhill crane numbers have been hanging around 100 to 150, and we did see a report from one of our bird observers of over 200 sandhill cranes at one single marsh just a couple weeks ago. Sandhill cranes are a large, lanky bird. They're migrating southward as they're going down towards the mid-Atlantic states. Some are going to make it all the way down to Florida for the winter months. They stand about 3 feet tall, mostly gray and brown in color. The adults have a red forehead, very noticeable. Also, their trumpeting or bugling call is very unique. So if people go to Florida, they might be very familiar with this bird and think, well, it's only a Florida bird. But really, they breed all the way up into Canada, and they do breed here at the Montezuma Wetlands Complex as well. So they're flocked up right now, they're migrating en masse, and I would encourage people to visit Montezuma right now because we don't know when winter is really going to come in and the marshes start to freeze over and the snow begins to fall. That is going to push the sandhill cranes and other birds further south out of our region.
Sure. Any unusual sightings or sightings that maybe aren't as common? Obviously, sandhill cranes, it seems to be an annual thing. A lot of other birds too. But what's sort of been unusual in terms of sightings over the last couple months?
Well, earlier on in the fall migration, we were seeing some species like the glossy ibis, which is more of a coastal bird, so more of Massachusetts coast, Long Island coast, down to the Jersey shoreline. And on occasion, during migration, juvenile birds will wander from their normal range. They're just checking out their region. They're getting interested in learning about their habitats and finding new habitats. So they wandered quite a ways inland, 400, 500 miles inland, and we were seeing a couple of those birds at the Montezuma National Wildlife Refuge earlier on in the season. Species of note right now are the waterfowl that continue to migrate through. We're seeing a really nice number of tundra swans coming into our region. These are huge white birds with a 7 to 8 foot wingspan, and they breed way up in the Arctic tundra and go down to the mid-Atlantic states for the wintertime, and the Montezuma Wetlands Complex serves as a critical stopover site for those birds. We're also seeing another 24 species of waterfowl, everything from ducks like the redheads, ringneck ducks, the scaup are all moving through as well. So now is a great time to visit the Montezuma Wetlands Complex. And actually, I want to make a note of this, that the National Wildlife Refuge drive, that 3-mile long drive, is going to close by the end of tomorrow, so November 30th. And they always close on that day. Just the winter season gets challenging. They can't plow it and keep people safe on that roadway. So the wildlife drive is going to close, but there are so many other areas for people to explore, including the Montezuma Audubon Center during the winter months.
I'm curious, and obviously you mentioned that it's a little weather dependent and you don't really know when things are going to change or end or when winter is going to really start. But in terms of like the averages, when does fall turn into winter in terms of what species you're seeing out at the center?
The migration season is nearly complete.
Okay.
We're still seeing some birds trickling in, and we're still getting cold fronts coming in, which is bringing northerly winds, which the birds ride from the breeding grounds up to the north down here to Montezuma and the Finger Lakes region more broadly. So this late November, early December season really is the turning point for migration. We're pretty much done. The birds that we have here now are pretty much going to be the ones that we have throughout the winter season, unless we freeze over completely, in which case the birds are going to have to go a little bit further south and probably go to areas like the deepest Finger Lakes, Cayuga, Seneca, Canandaigua. Those don't freeze over completely, so that's where the waterfowl and birds of prey like bald eagles are going to hang out during the winter.
Gotcha. Volunteers needed for your bird count coming up in mid-December, a little before Christmas, right?
The Montezuma Christmas bird count is happening on Monday, December 19th. We've been doing this for nearly 30 years now, and it's a combination of Montezuma staff, including the Audubon Center staff, DEC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, but also dozens of volunteers come out and spend a good portion of the day counting birds all across the Montezuma Wetlands Complex. we've been hosting it at the Audubon Center for over a dozen years now. And so we're looking for people to participate in this in a variety of ways. They can be budding birders, or they can be expert birders. There's really something for everyone. And we are still looking for a few people to bird in a couple of areas across the Montezuma Wetlands Complex. They can spend a couple hours, they can spend 12 hours out. It really just depends on their schedule and what their availability is. So we'll have about 40 volunteers and staff all across the Montezuma area. I'll be out there with my staff and some volunteers as well. And after the day of birding, we're going to gather at the Audubon Center again for a nice warm meal, nice warm beverages, and we'll have the annual compilation of the data, where all the birders report their bird sightings from the day. This is fun. It's a great way to kick off the holiday season, but it's also valuable science that we're doing out there. This data from the Christmas bird count, it helps Audubon understand where birds are, helps us guide our conservation work, helps us understand where birds are and where do we need to do a little bit more conservation work for them. So fun, valuable. You're hanging out with like-minded individuals, and we're looking for people to participate on December 19th. So if they want to participate, people can call us at the center, 315-365-3588, or email us, montezuma@audubon.org.
Now, talking about bird watching, something that I've personally never done, but people get really into it, right? Like, I mean, for a two-part question, are you really into it, and why did you end up in the position that you're in? That's the first part. The second part, the holidays, crazy times, bird watching can be kind of therapeutic, I believe, in a way. So why is this something that might be a nice break in the holiday season for people, and what do you like about bird watching?
First of all, I am a proud bird nerd.
Bird nerd.
I love birds. I've been birding for over 20 years. I started off as a volunteer naturalist at some small nature centers in the Washington, D.C. area. That led to some part-time work with the National Park Service, and ultimately I landed a job with the Nature Conservancy 15 years ago, managing central and northern New York land for the Conservancy. And then I've been with the National Audubon Society now for 12 years. So it's really a unique organization to work for, because we have science, advocacy, education, and conservation staff. And our mission is to protect birds in the places they need today and for tomorrow. Now, why do people bird? Well, first of all, there are 47 million birders in this country, okay? Millions of them are right here in New York State, and I know many of them are watching right now. And there are opportunities for people to participate in Christmas bird count all around the Finger Lakes region. It's not just Montezuma. Whether you're in Syracuse, Rochester, Ithaca, or any of our smaller communities, there's probably a Christmas bird count near them. Well, yes, it's therapeutic. You're outside. You're getting fresh air. You're traditionally walking or snowshoeing, or you can be paddling throughout our wonderful, unique ecosystems here in the Finger Lakes region, looking for maybe common birds like black-capped chickadee, northern cardinal, or those rare species like pied-bill grebe, northern harrier, peregrine falcon. So you just never know what you're going to see out there, which makes it fun and exciting.
And it's kind of an escape, right? Like you're so focused on, so like for you taking a walk, who would you normally bird? It's called birding. So
That's
who would
right.
you normally bird with? Who's your favorite person to bird with?
Oh my gosh, my family, of course, because
Are they birders?
They're birders. They're not bird nerds yet, but they love getting out and exploring and going for walks and paddling and snowshoeing, and we just have a great time together. But I also enjoy introducing new people to birding. New people to the Montezuma Wetlands Complex, this incredible 50,000 acre mosaic of habitats that we have right here in our backyard and in the Finger Lakes region. So there are opportunities for people to get involved. We have a lot of young people and families participating in this activity as well. And again, we're encouraging people to reach out to us at the Montezuma Audubon Center if they want to participate in our Christmas bird count, or check out the Audubon Christmas bird count website. and you'll see a map, and there are a lot of opportunities for people to get involved all throughout the holiday season.
And of course, holiday season, but also Giving Tuesday, and your annual campaign, the Audubon's annual campaign, is underway. Has been for what, about a week now?
That's right.
And runs through the end of the year. Why is this such an important time for you guys to be able to do what you do all year long?
Montezuma Audubon Center is affiliated with the National Audubon Society, and we are a nonprofit bird conservation organization. Our role at the Audubon Center is to connect people to this amazing Montezuma area, as well as other important bird areas across the Finger Lakes region, and inspire them to take action on behalf of birds. Birds are telling us that they need help. We have lost about 3 billion birds since 1970. That came out in a scientific report just in the last year or so. And largely that is because of habitat loss. Climate change is happening. Birds' ranges are having to expand. They're not able to adapt. Invasive species are an issue as well. So birds are threatened, and we need to do more for them. So our role at the Audubon Center is to bring more people into the flock. One way that we're doing that is by launching our youth leadership program. We've done this now over this past year because of the generous support of our donors last annual appeal season. To date, we have engaged nearly 400 middle school, high school, and college students from across the Finger Lakes region. Those youth have helped us restore over 200 acres of habitat at Montezuma, and we've removed about 2,000 pounds of the invasive water chestnut from the Seneca River and the Clyde River. But we need to do more for birds. So we are asking people to donate today on Giving Tuesday. They can go to montezuma.audubon.org, click on Support Our Work, and people can make a donation of $10, $100, or more. If people are interested in supporting the next generation of conservation leaders, then here's the opportunity to do that.
And you mentioned it, so I have to ask you a question because I know it's going to come in afterward. Water chestnut. Give us an idea of this invasive species and how it isn't just a one and done scenario in terms of cleaning up waterways. This is ongoing work that has to happen every single year, right?
Invasive species have an advantage over our native species. The invasives are introduced species. They're largely from Europe and Asia. The water chestnut is from Europe and Asia as well. And it's not the type that you buy at the grocery store. It's a different species. And water chestnut will get into rivers, lake streams, marsh habitats, outcompete our native vegetation for space and for resources, and therefore choke out those areas, make it very difficult for birds and other wildlife to survive, make it difficult for people to paddle through these areas. Anglers have a difficult time fishing, and it's almost impossible to swim through. So, major problem. And it's not something we tackle now. It's a fun activity to do during the summer season, when it's growing, when it's flourishing, when the vegetation is floating right on the surface of the water. Fairly easy to identify a rosette-shaped plant with white flowers, and the nutlets, or the seeds, are quite large and pointy and very distinguishable. So we go out with youth through our youth leadership program and families, and we had a successful year this past summer. We're looking to do even more in the coming year, so that's why we're asking people to donate here on Giving Tuesday, help us bring more youth into Montezuma Audubon Center's youth leadership program, as well as expand to Onondaga Lake. And we've done a lot of work out there helping to restore that ecosystem, and that's now a thriving, important bird area as well, where people can find about 100 bald eagles during the winter months and thousands of ducks and geese as well.
Very, very cool. Easy one for the last question for you. Your favorite thing about fall and early winter out at the Audubon Center?
It's the unknown. What bird is going to come in next? I'm still waiting for my first northern shrike to come in. The northern shrike is more of a boreal forest bird, and it's about this large, mostly gray overall, with a large, black, powerful bill. Has a really unique way of hunting and storing food. So it can go after smaller songbirds like black-capped chickadees or white-breasted nuthatch, which can be found in people's backyards and in their communities, they can take that bird, catch it on the wing, and then impale it on a
What?
hawthorn tree. So hawthorn trees have these large thorns. Well, you can store it almost like putting it into a refrigerator during the winter months and then coming back and having a meal later on.
Wow.
That's a little much. So
Didn't realize we were going to get that graphic this
no,
morning.
so
It's
this
not
it's
all
a little
rainbows
bird.
and unicorns out in nature. It's life is tough out in the wild,
Well-
and birds, everything has to eat, and this northern shrike has a really unique way of catching a meal and then eating it right away or possibly storing it for later.
And it's a tiny little bird, right?
Well, it's a fairly good size.
Oh, it's a big- okay.
It's a bigger bird. It's about this big, and we typically get them at Montezuma Audubon Center. Haven't seen my first one of the season yet, but on the lookout.
All right. Well, one more time for those who might have missed it in the beginning. Where can folks donate? How do they donate? Give them a rundown on that.
This Giving Tuesday and throughout the rest of the holiday season, people can go to montezuma.audubon.org, click on Support Our Work. They'll find that link right underneath our big bald eagle photo on the main page there. Get involved, help us engage hundreds more youth at Montezuma Audubon Center, help us expand youth leadership program to Onondaga Lake, bring more youth into the conservation movement, and have a greater impact on birds and the places they need.
Awesome. Chris, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for taking it.
Thanks so much.
All right, well, that is going to do it for this edition of Finger Lakes Today. Rebecca will be joined by Jim Sinacropi here at the desk tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.